guys, today I'm just going to touch on BPD. I want to talk more, basically about the stigma around it, the causes, things like that, just so people have a bit more of understanding about it, because I don't know, I think most people think when you have a mental health problem, it's like, oh, well, she gets a bit down in the dumps sometimes, or, you know, and that's about it. Like, they just think that you get depressed and people are just like, you know, cheer up, it'll be fine, just think positive. And sometimes it's just really not possible. So I just wanted to really touch upon some points. Mind my awful fake tan. So yeah, I wrote loads of stuff down, because if anybody has come on to this channel from my old one, you'll know I just babble on and on and on and on and on, which I'm doing right now. And sometimes I make no sense and I just go off. So I've made notes this time, so I'll stick to what I'm saying, hopefully. But I'm gonna talk about what I've gone on loads of different sites. Obviously, I have been diagnosed with BPD, so I know like the main things about it anyway. But I went on a lot of the NHS and Mind sites, so I could, you know, get proper research for you. So I'm not just putting it in my own words. I'm, you know, does that make sense? I hope it does. People have different views on BPD. So basically it is a very controversial diagnosis, and it's very much to the own person's experience. I think there are main, like, what can I say, main traits of BPD, but everybody's BPD is different to themselves, if that makes any sense, like personal experiences. Different views on BPD, and it can be a very controversial diagnosis. But however you understand your own experiences, the important thing to remember is that the feelings and behaviours associated with BPD are very real and very difficult to live with, and they do deserve understanding and support. With BPD, I don't know if I've already said, but emotionally unstable borderline personality disorder, also known as borderline personality disorder, BPD. It can make you very out of control sometimes, and I think some people don't understand the severity of it. But like it says here, that your own experiences and the way you feel and the way you can behave because of the way you feel, it is totally real. And you also, when you make these choices because of your feelings, etc., you have to deal with the consequences, and you have to live with them, you know. And it can be really, really tough. So there is a list I've got here of, there is so many traits to BPD. But I'm gonna list off like the most common ones. It does say that if you feel at least 5 of these, then you should seek some sort of help. Obviously, when I was diagnosed, I was under section, so I was obviously speaking to a psychiatrist and explaining in depth, and I was, you know, obviously excuse me, I was in a facility, so I personally can't say to you who to go to get a diagnosis, or if you think you do have it, who to speak to. Right, I would personally say go to a GP and maybe get referred to the mental health team through there, or if you are in a really, really low place, go to your A&E emergency services and ask for the crisis team ASAP. I relate to every single one of these. So I'm going to say what the NHS and mine say, and I'm going to give a little bit of an example from a personal level. So you feel very worried about people abandoning you and will do anything to stop that from happening. This is one of my main problems, is I'm always scared of people leaving because of my what it comes down to with my diagnosis with BPD is part of abandonment. So I have major abandonment issues, and I will shower people in gifts, I will give them money, I will literally see myself go without to see the other person. I will do everything in my power to make that other person happy and give them no excuse to leave me, because I get obsessed, like massively obsessed, because I'm so scared of them leaving. I never thought that I would get emotional making this, but I am. Okay, so sorry about that. But yeah, and often the case, you either end up doing all of this to keep that person around, and they take advantage of it, because if the feelings aren't mutual, they're going to take. Yeah, it's, you know, and you get taken advantage of, and then it hits. And also it can push somebody away because it's too much. You know, it's not normal. You know, relationships, friendships, everything, it should be a solid 50-50, or it should be a 20-80 when the other one's feeling down. You know, it should be from both sides. And when you're giving, sometimes you can scare somebody off as well. So, in my experience, it never ends good. But yeah, so that's one massive thing, and that's my kind of personal experience of it. So there is very intense emotions that last from a few hours to a few days and can change instantly. So I find, not so much anymore since I've been sober, but I kind of have like 3 feelings, and they are intense. I either feel manic, frantic, like mega happy, so happy that it actually scares me, which will lead on to another one of these points in a minute. Suicidal, like I don't want to get out of bed, I don't want to live, I can't make it through another day. Or aggressive, angry, like I can't really say that on here, but I mean intense anger. And it can change instantly, especially when you have a manic episode, when you're frantic and you're very happy. It's very scary, because you know when you're having one of these manic episodes that you're going to hit a very low. And if anything, no matter how little of a trigger, when you're having a manic episode, it can be the littlest thing and you could just feel rage, absolute rage. And you also know that, oh, this is nice, I'm happy, I'm good, you know. and then you'll do impulsive things, which is another one. I might as well just go into that one now because they're kind of linked together. But you act very impulsively. So like you're all happy, la 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 la, everything's all good. I'm gonna go online shopping. I'm gonna spend loads of money. Or if you drink, if you know alcohol is an issue or something that you use, you could be like, oh, I'm really happy, do you know what, I'll be fine having a few drinks tonight because I'm in a really good mood, and then you'll bail the drink. You make very impulsive, silly decisions when you are in these intense emotions, in anger, feeling low. I'm only going by what I have, and these are the main three emotions I feel hard and deep. And love is another one, but that comes along with what I was just talking about, with the being over obsessive and the impulse, and it's just not healthy. It's not healthy whatsoever. You do not have a strong sense of who you are. You don't have much of an identity. You will notice a lot of people with BPD, and I've noticed it a lot since I've been on using TikTok, and a lot of people who are open about their mental health, they'll always be dyeing their hair, making impulsive decisions on their the way they look. Like my dress sense, I can be chavvy for weeks on end, then I can just go really girly for a few weeks, and then I might dye my hair a different colour, get a haircut, start wearing different makeup. Always changing image, always. And another thing with not having a strong sense of who you are is very dangerous, because if you are in, for example, most people with BPD will be in toxic relationships because of their abandonment issues, and their feeling that they want to be loved so bad, they'll take that love from anybody, and they will think in their mind that they can fix people, when we all know life doesn't work like that. So I never like to call myself vulnerable at all. I don't think I'm a vulnerable person. I think I'm a strong person. But when you look at it as a whole, you are a vulnerable person when it does come to a toxic relationship or something, because you are very, very easily molded with this, with BPD. You are easily molded because you're so desperate to want to be loved and not wanting someone to leave you, whether it's in a relationship or a friendship. You will mold into that person, what that person wants you to be, and sometimes you don't realise you're doing it. And especially if you're with somebody who is narcissistic. I said that right, narcissist, because that is what they want to do. They want to control you, so you're like prey. I have to be as honest as I can, really, but you are like prey to them, and it's awful. So you will find that people with BPD will be drawn to toxic situations, toxic relationships, toxic friendships. And I think a lot of people look at the person who has the BPD as a toxic person, because slowly they can turn into a toxic person themselves, especially if there's drink involved, drugs involved, if you're doing them as a coping mechanism, impulsively, you know, it's a hard one. It is a really hard one. But basically what I was trying to say is you don't have really self-awareness or a self-image. What was the word I said? Strong sense of who you are. You're very lost. Very, very lost. And all the other factors around you of, you know, wanting to be loved and wanting somebody not to leave you because you're not confident in who you are and have a strong sense of belief and love for yourself, it's very easy to crumble and just become this person around these people, become this person around that person. It's very easy for you to do that because there's not really, but you are, I'm going to say this right now to all you BPD warriors out there, you are a strong-willed, minded person because you're living with this every single day, and it is excruciating at sometimes. The pain, like deep inside you, is absolutely horrible to live with. So even though it says you don't have a strong sense of who you are, you do know who you are, and you do know what you want, and you are strong. So don't take that, do not take that please as me saying that, well, you know, you're a pushover, you know, anybody can make you do this, anybody can make you do that, because that's not it at all. So the next 2 points, I've kind of, I'm glad I just blabbed on then because they kind of all fit together. So the next point is you find it very hard to make and maintain stable relationships. So exactly what I just said, it's very hard to have a two-way friendship or relationship, somebody who gets you, so, I wouldn't say 9 times out of 10, but most of the time they can be very toxic. And I'm not saying that it's the other person that can always be toxic. Just because you've got BPD and stuff like that, like, you can be the toxic person. I have been the toxic person in a relationship. I don't want to talk too much into it, but I've been in a relationship and my drinking, because I could not live without it, I didn't think I could live without it, my drinking came before my husband, it came before my children. It was the be all and end all, you know, like I was the toxic person, but back then I didn't know any different. I wasn't self-aware in any sense of the word. Like I literally wasn't a mess. I had no sense of who I was. I could not accept any love because I did not think I was worthy of it at all. And I self-sabotaged, and I had to learn the hard way with that. So I'm not saying that you'll always be drawn to toxic people. You know, you can also be that toxic person yourself. And this is what I'm saying, there's consequences of things you have to live with as well. And also saying, I know toxic is not a nice word. It's not a nice word to use because, you know, if you are sitting there right now and thinking, oh my gosh, I could have BPD, and then I'm saying, you're toxic, it's probably not going to help your self-esteem, is it? Let's be honest. But it's the only way I can describe it, with toxic traits, you know, toxic choices, toxic behaviour. It's not a bit of, oh, I slipped up there, or oh, I really shouldn't have done that, I'm going to pay for that tomorrow. No, it is major F-ups, major blowouts. It's people with BPD, they don't make hiccups in life. You will royally mess it up. and that is just so crappy, because it's not your fault that you have this. But understanding yourself, which hopefully we can do together, will stop that. So you feel empty a lot of the time. We've already covered that, really. It's the fact of, you know, needing to feel loved, sense of who you are. I think that all goes, the abandonment, that it all speaks for itself, really. There, you act impulsively, that can harm yourself or others. So exactly what I just said, making impulsive decisions. You know, if you're somebody who will spend a lot of money and you've got a family, you could go and binge online and then be like, oh my God, I can't pay the bills. I've got to pay for the kids' school dinners. You know, that's impulsive, and it can be harmful to yourself and everyone around you. It's not always just drinking drugs. I want to make that very, very clear, that it's not just drinking drugs. Like, anything you do impulsive to a degree can be harmful. So there's spending, there is drink, there is drugs, there's gambling, promiscuity, being promiscuous, that goes with your self-worth and the not knowing who you are and the emptiness inside. Sleeping around is, I'm not gonna lie, it is probably most people that I've spoken to since being diagnosed, and the people that I've surrounded myself with, that is a massive one, a massive one. Self-sabotaging, when you think things are going too well, or you don't think you deserve something, so you'll make an impulsive decision to mess it up. Guys, BPD is not fun by any means, and just sitting here, sorry, as you all know, I am nearly 33 weeks pregnant. I've got raging heartburn. It's hitting me as I'm talking about it, because obviously it's something that I've lived with for a long time. So I'm not just sitting here trying to reel something off online, you know, little notes. I'm speaking to you on a real level, because I'm so glad that I got a diagnosis, and now I understand who I am, and I can now, by all means, it's not any easier, but I'm learning to live with it. And I really just hope that people can watch this and realise that it can get better, and you can live with it. Because I'm just sitting here thinking about all the things I've done, which I never knew what was wrong with me. I just thought there was something wrong with me. I wasn't normal. I was born to mess up, you know. And it's sad. It's so sad. Anyway, so very intense feelings of rage and anger, we've covered that, and also self-harm or suicidal thoughts. So obviously that goes with what I was saying about your mood swings. I just want to point out that self-harm isn't always cutting yourself. Self-harm could be eating too much, eating too little, hygiene, not keeping up with your hygiene, anything that's harmful to yourself, to your body, to your well-being, to your mental, physical health. Something that you're doing is self-harm. It's not always it's not always physically hurting yourself. It's you can do it in other ways. So, and I don't think a lot of people understand that. They might think, oh, do you know what, I'm really anxious, or I'm really not feeling myself, so I'm just not going to eat. I don't feel like eating. When you're purposely not eating, when you know that your body is telling you, I am starving, feed me, and you're like, no, That's you trying to gain some sort of control over your life because you're feeling out of control, because you haven't got control of your emotions. You can control what you can and can't put in your mouth, and that's you trying to gain some sort of control, and with this you are harming yourself. You know, if you're binging and binging and binging and making yourself ill or sick, that's not good for you. If you're not eating and your body's not getting what it needs, you know, you see where I'm going from there. So when people say self-harm, trust me, it's not always physically harming yourself. And looking after yourself, like hygiene wise, not bathing, just, you know, you don't want to brush your own hair. These are all harmful things to yourself. Just because you're not physically hurting yourself, you're still harming your well-being, your mind, you know. So that's something to really think about. Also, when very stressed, can experience paranoia or disassociation. I've suffered with paranoia, but you can have two types of paranoia. You can have justified paranoia and unjustified paranoia. So let me think of an example. So justified paranoia would be you've been in a long-term relationship that's had domestic abuse. You've finally left the person and you've moved away, and you're paranoid of them finding you, or you think that you can hear their voice or things like that. That kind of paranoia is justified because it's like PTSD. It's happened to you. It's something that has happened to you in your life, and you're paranoid of that person coming back into your life. That's just an example. Unjustified paranoia is paranoia of sitting there one day watching telly and you are convinced that the FBI are watching you through your telly. Unjustified paranoia. Okay, so they're the main kind of traits. I'm out of breath because I have to keep going up and down the stairs. Tonight, when I decide to film, my children decide that they don't want to go to sleep. They've been really good for the past week, so bear with me. So yeah, they say that if you're feeling a minimum of five of them to seek some sort of help. And like I've said, if you are in the stages where you're having suicidal thoughts, no care for yourself, self-harm, you're acting destructively with alcohol or drugs, and you're really feeling out of control of your life, please go to an accident and emergency department. And even if you have to sit there, I've done it, and I bet many other people who are watching this and have suffered with any sort of mental health issue, you may be waiting there 12 hours, but trust me, stick it out. Just stick it out and speak to somebody from the mental health team, from the crisis team, please, because things do get better. And even if you have to put yourself in hospital, I've done it, many people have done it, it will help you, okay? You are worth it. You are so worth it. Everybody in this world is worth a chance. Do not be sitting there looking into the bottom of a bottle or thinking of harming yourself and thinking that your life's not worth living just because things aren't adding up in your brain right now, because you really are worth it. So please, if any of these are like ringing true to you, just please go and get some help. And even if you're not feeling that low, just get a GP appointment, you know, and maybe sit there and research it yourself and bring it to the doctor and say, you know, just want you to know that it's always going to be tough, but you can manage it and you can deal with it. Okay, so there's not actually a clear reason behind borderline personality disorder. They put it down to either two things: a stressful or traumatic event in someone's childhood, or genetic factors. Okay, so here, with the traumatic life events, stressful or traumatic life events, they have got often feeling afraid, upset, unsupported, or invalidated. So you could have grown up with these stressful feelings. So imagine being a child and feeling you can't speak to your parents for whatever reason, feeling like you're worthless, maybe, you know, like these are strong feelings to have as a child. Just remember, just put yourself in a situation now. If you don't have the diagnosis, or this hasn't happened to you, just put yourself in a situation so maybe you can understand. You might have friends or family with BPD, and just start to understand them a little bit better. So they say it's around the age of 5 is when you start remembering. People can remember things from earlier than 5 if it's traumatic enough, you know, unfortunately. But yeah, having a strong feeling of being afraid, upset, unsupported, or invalidated as a child. So family difficulties or instability, such as living with a parent who has an addiction. Sexual, physical, or emotional abuse. Losing a parent. And seeing unhealthy coping mechanisms. So it's a kind of case of, it can be monkey see, monkey do. So if you've grown up in a situation where, I don't really know if I should go into it or not. Okay, so I've seen a lot of drinking growing up around me. Sad occasions, happy occasions, drunken arguments, drunken fights. I've seen that drink is massive. So when I was growing up, I kind of thought, well, I'm not feeling great about myself, I'll have a drink. And then I did have a drink, and I loved it because I felt confident and I felt free, and I felt like it filled a void. That's the word I'm looking for. It filled a void. I don't want to sit here and say that I'm putting blame onto other people, but it was a case of I've seen a lot and witnessed a lot that I shouldn't have as a child, which made me feel intense, horrible feelings. And I was too young to even understand what those feelings were, so I couldn't deal with them. And I sometimes think now, oh my God, I'm an adult, I'm 29 next week, and if I was put in that situation that I was put in when I was younger, I still wouldn't be able to deal with it, because it's not nice, you know? So yeah, it's having those very, very strong emotions as a child. Mine personally, so obviously that's a bit of why I drank, and obviously led on to drugs and things like that, was because I seen it as a coping mechanism, because it was so easily there. It was just, I was around alcohol a lot. But for me, when I spoke to my psychiatrist, my biological father was involved in my life up until the age of, I think, around 5. And I would see him regularly, and I idolised him, absolutely idolised him. It wasn't, he didn't idolise me. He only seen me because the courts had, you know, made him. My stepdad came into my life, who I adore with all my heart. And my dad basically, my biological dad just said, she's yours now, I don't want her. And he never come back. And as a 5-year-old little girl, that was devastating. And that is where I know people are going to see this as well, and you know, I don't know if I should be talking so deep into it, but I'm here, I am, you know, this is real life, this is my life. And you know, I'm not ashamed now, because I didn't make that decision. I was a helpless little kid that just wanted their dad, you know, simple. But yeah, so speaking to my psychiatrist when I was in hospital, it's not the main reason of my BPD, but it was a massive factor of it. Because I had that sense of, yes, my dad didn't die, but it was a loss at such a young age, where, and not only a loss, is he was gone from my life, but I still seen him all the time because we lived in the same town. So it was very confusing for me how I didn't see him anymore, but he was still around. I couldn't fathom it as a child. I still don't have contact with him now, and I'm not going to sit here and slag him off and say that, you know, yep, he's the reason why I'm like this, but it's a massive factor. So I'm sitting here saying, from a psychiatrist's point of view, where my BPD kind of stemmed from, and that's kind of my story. So obviously there are massive traumas that can happen in a child's life, which, you know, we touched upon, like sexual abuse, physical abuse. I witnessed a lot of domestic violence when I was younger. So the thing is, when you're a little child, like my 5-year-old up in bed now, you're so impressionable. You're like a sponge. You take everything in. And when you're seeing that the people you love or the people around you are being so toxic, you grow up thinking that that is a way of life. You don't know any different. And your brain just does not develop like other people who don't have that. You know, your brain's warped, your brain's just mashed, your brain doesn't understand, and it's scary. It's scary. And you know, this is another reason why people with traumatic childhood can find peace and find love in a toxic person, because to them that's home. And I know that sounds really strange, but it's the truth. To them, that is normality. And this is why when somebody who has been through traumatic things finds somebody who loves them and adores them and worships the ground they walk on, they can't accept it. They can't take it in, because they feel so worthless, and they've not witnessed what this is. They can't take it. They honestly, they can't take it in because it's abnormal to them. And you know, a lot of people say like, oh, why do girls always like the bad boys? Blah, blah, blah. You know, a lot of people say that. Like, you know, why do they choose the bad boy and stuff like that? But like sometimes it's just because that's all that people know. It's not because they find it attractive in somebody to be beaten up or to be with the drug dealer or something like that. It's because they don't know their self-worth and they don't know anything different. You know, it's very, very sad, and I'm gonna keep saying this, that your feelings are valid and people should be understanding, and people should be seeing mental health in a bigger picture, because nobody asks to be in this position. Nobody wants to be sat there in a dark room battling with their own mind, trying to understand who the hell they are, because they have no idea, because their head is so smashed from traumas, from bad decisions, from bad life choices. You know, it's not fair, and people really do need to take a step back and think, you know what, that person did not ask to be this way. This person can't be enjoying being a drug addict or drinking every day. You know, and when I was on TikTok and I was doing my lives when I relapsed, a lot of people have said to me, Jess, when we seen you doing your lives and when we seen how drunk you are, you never looked happy. You looked dead behind the eyes. And that is because I wasn't drinking because I enjoyed it. I wasn't drinking because I wanted to be one of the gang. I was drinking because I just didn't want to feel anything. And, you know, it was a cry for help. It was a cry for help, which nobody helped me with. I helped myself. Yes, I had support from followers and whatnot, but nobody around me was helping me. They were just happy to see me destroying my life. You know, nobody sat me down and was like, right, enough's enough. I made the decision to go back to AA. I made the decision to stop drinking. You know, my partner at the time, you know, if I was sitting there shaking, saying that I was really craving a drink, he would be like, oh, well, go to Tesco, get one then, just have one. It doesn't work like that, you know, when you're an alcoholic. One is too many and 10 is not enough. Can't just have one, you know? It's a sad situation, sorry. Okay, so I've just kind of gone off on my own thing there of examples. Like I said at the beginning of this, BPD is a very personal experience. You don't get a blood test and be like, you've got BPD like everybody else. BPD comes from personal experiences. So your BPD, if you do have it, is your BPD. It's your past experiences. It's your life. It affects everybody in different ways. Okay, I'm just trying to give my story, my example, and people who don't understand mental health that way, hopefully will just take something from this and be like, oh, sugar, you know? I'm hoping. But anyway, so they have here, if you've had a difficult childhood, experiences like these may have caused you to develop particular coping strategies or beliefs about yourself and other people, which can cause massive distress. You will struggle with feelings of anger, fear and sadness. You can have BPD without these, or have your own difficult experience. So examples that have been used, like I just said, something traumatic that happens to Jim Bob over there might not be traumatic to me. What traumatic happened to me might not affect somebody else. We're all different, okay? We all see traumas in different ways. So it's, like I said, it's very much your own experience. And then stress and traumas in adulthood will only make things worse. So obviously I deal with complex PTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which means I don't have, I won't be touching upon too much of it because I physically can't. I'm not strong enough to sit in front of a camera. Maybe one day I will, but so I haven't just had one traumatic event happen in my life which has caused me to have post-traumatic stress disorder. I've had multiple traumas from my childhood and my teenage years, which has led me to have complex PTSD, which unfortunately is a lot harder to treat because you're not just dealing with one solid trauma, you're dealing with so many. So not only did I have traumas when I was younger, but then I grew up, and because of my lifestyle, because of my choices, because of my vulnerability, because of things I wasn't aware of at the time, they led to other massive traumas in my life, which every trauma set me back more, made me drink more, made me take drugs more, made me self-harm more, made me hate myself more. Yeah, so stress and trauma in adulthood, you know, it does honestly make things a lot worse. Because you sit there and you think, I went through this as a child and I'm still going through it now, so what's wrong with me? You know, gives you that feeling of so then we've got genetic factors, and I haven't got much on this because I haven't got much to say about it. So genetic factors, we have close family have been diagnosed. It's very hard to know if very hard to know of difficulties associated with BPD. Environment, thinking, coping and learned behaviours. Genetics make you more vulnerable, often due to stress and traumas. So basically, what they're trying to say is what the main cause, they haven't got much evidence on genetic factors with BPD. The only strong evidence they have of it being genetic is if you have a close family member, so maybe somebody who's bringing you up, like your mum or your dad or your grandparents, if you're brought up by your grandparents, if they are suffering from it and you have been raised by somebody suffering from it, it can be very much learned behaviour, because obviously they are leading you by example. If that makes any sense. Does that make any sense? So it'll be so their way of thinking, obviously, if you're an impressionable child being brought up by somebody now, so their way of thinking is what you think is normal. Their way of coping, if it's destructive, is what you would think was normal, because your caregiver is showing you these examples. So it comes very much more not being born with BPD, but developing BPD from learned behaviours, like I said, monkey see, monkey do kind of example. So then it says that with that, if you are being brought up by somebody with BPD and maybe they can't bring you up that well or take care of you as well as they would want to because of their own mental health, that could lead to you then having a trauma in your childhood because you're not being looked after properly. Because if that person can't look after themselves properly and are exposing you to things that you shouldn't be exposed to, it's then going to be a trauma onto your life. So genetics, you know, I think it all, my personal opinion, I think it all just lands on having a stressful childhood. You know, there is no evidence to say that if my mum had BPD and she gave birth to me, that I got it because of that. There is no evidence to show that, but the evidence around stressful childhoods, traumatic childhoods, stuff like that, there's, you know, that's what all the evidence does point to. And that really is all I've got from the top of my head, from actually sitting there and trying to explain things the best to my ability. Blah, 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 blah. That's basically all I can say. But as I always say, leave your feedback in the comments, because if there's something that you want to ask and I feel like I've got some knowledge or I can look into for you, like, I'm happy to carry on making videos and sitting here and talking about it, because I don't want anybody to suffer alone, because I suffered alone for so many years. I give a quick, so I learned the hard way in life, okay, massively, learned the hard way in life. What's keeping me on the straight and narrow right now is the fact that I have a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old upstairs, and I know how impressionable 4 and 5-year-olds are. I had something traumatic happen to me when I was very young, which I'm not going to go into, and then obviously my dad leaving, and I know the effect that it's had on me now when I'm nearly 30. So I know that sitting here drinking every night and being hungover every morning and things like that, I know that it's going to have a knock-on effect on my children. Like, we've just sat down, I'm aware of it now, I am aware of it, so this is what's making me change. If it wasn't for my kids, I don't know if I'd have the strength. I don't know if I would have the strength in me to change, because I wouldn't have that drive to get up every morning and things like that. But that is because I get asked that a lot. How do you deal on bad days? Is I think of things in my childhood. I think of my way of thinking when I was a child. I was thinking of how I felt when I was younger, and do I want my child to ever feel like that? No, I don't. Never in a million years. And that gives me the kick up the bumhole that I really need every time I sit down and I give myself a reality check. And I know that in 10 years from now, when I have teenage boys, that they will look at me and they won't be asking me to get them drugs. They won't be asking me to, well, you know, I'm not saying that going down to the pub or something is a bad idea, but they won't be, you know, stealing from my bottle of vodka that I've got stashed away, like, in every single room, because I'm, you know, I'm a raging alcoholic. You know, I know these things aren't going to happen, and I'm giving my children the best that I can do in a really crappy situation. So I know that's the question I get asked all the time, is what gets you through? That is what gets me through, is not damaging my children. And I'm going to leave it there. So anything you want to say, please guys, please like, subscribe, you know, come on a journey with me. You know, it's not always going to be sunshine and roses. I've just had a really bad down episode where I was very manic, and then I just crashed. I'm going through a part of my BPD right now where I'm absolutely obsessed with somebody, and so I'm living it every single day, you know. So chuck me what you want to say. I will sit down, I read everything that you say, and then I can relay it all in another video, because it's my life, guys. I live it on different levels every single day. So talk to me and we'll get through this together. Okay, so thank you for listening, and I'll catch you later. Bye.